Okay, we're live? Okay, so hello everyone, welcome to Sleepy Classes. Today we have a very esteemed panelist with us, Mr. Anil Swarup. He's a former Core Secretary of the Government of India. He's from the Uttar Pradesh cadre, 1981 batch, and he has a very prestigious career, I would say. And recently he has written 2 books as well. I think a lot of us are very inspired by those books, The Ethical Dilemmas of a Civil Servant being the latest one. So, sir, I hand it to you, sir, for the.
A very good morning to all of you, and thank you for inviting me here. I will briefly outline the approach towards the personality test, and this is basically addressed to those that have qualified for the written exams. Now, for understanding how you should appear before the board, there are 3 aspects that I look into. The first aspect is we must clearly understand what the board is looking for. It's like selling any product. When you prepare any product, you look at the market. You see what is the demand and you prepare your product accordingly. Similarly, we must clearly understand what the board is looking for. I'll try and answer this question, because if you don't understand that clearly, all your preparation will not be tuned to what is required in the board. You will be preparing something else and the board requires something else. So I will try and share with you with my personal experience and the experience that I have had in guiding people like you, students like you, for the personality test. So first question I'll try and answer is, what is the board looking for? The second question that I'll try and answer is, how should you prepare from now to the day when you have your personality test? How should you spend your time? What exactly should you do to hone your skills to cater to the requirements of the board, which is the first question that I will try and answer. And the third question I will try and answer is, what do you do on the day of the interview? So my presentation would be in 3 parts. 1, what does the board want? Secondly, how should you prepare to meet the requirements of what the board wants, and what you should do on the final day. Now, let us first try and understand what does the board want. Contrary to the general perception, the board is not assessing your knowledge. Your knowledge has already been assessed in your written examination. So then what is the board looking at? The board is looking at your persona as your personality. That is why it is not called an interview, it is called a personality test. And we must understand the difference between an interview and a personality test. In interview, you might be grilled. People will ask you a question on a particular aspect of what you've learned, and they will go into the depth of it to understand the depth of your understanding of that subject. It happens when, selections happen for, say, a professor of economics or something like that. But here, it is not so. As I said earlier, your knowledge has already been tested in your written exam. Now they are looking at your personality. Now, what are the personality traits they are looking at? And this is important for you to understand, because once you understand what they are looking at, you will be able to prepare in the next month or so that you have before the test that you have to undergo. Number 1, you have to be articulate. Now, the point here is, whatever you may have in your mind here, and however well you have given your written exam, until and unless you are able to speak out what you want to say, the purpose stands defeated. It is sitting in your mind, and hence you should have the articulation to express it. In the next part, I'll tell you how do you improve your articulation in a month and a half. In each aspect, I'll tell you how to improve upon what you are today till the date of the test. But you must understand what they're looking at. So articulation is key. Your communication skills are the key to getting you through for the service that you want. And mind you, each number or each mark is important, because every mark you go down or up the merit list. So if you work on what I'm going to tell you, I'm sure you'll succeed. So 1 is improving your articulation. Second, what are they looking at? When you present your case, when you present your argument, it has to be logical, it has to be cogent, it has to be coherent, it has to be rational. Now, all these are very important aspects. And I'll also tell you, how do you improve upon presenting your case? So you may become articulate, but you may still be illogical. You may still not be very coherent. You're speaking out something, some nonsense you're speaking out. No, they want sense. They want you from you as to how do you present your case. Presentation becomes very important. How do you present your point of view? And for that, you'll have to do a bit of practice. And that also I'll tell you how to go about improving your presentation of your case in a logical manner, in a rational manner, because one argument will flow from the other. And you can give examples. Now, the difference between written exam and the interview is, or the personality test is, that in written exam, you have, say, 300 words, 500 words, or 1,000 words, where you can build the entire argument. Here, at best, you'll be speaking for 5 minutes. At best, I mean, you will not be speaking for 5 minutes on any issue. You'll be speaking for a shorter time. So you should have the capability to compress what you got to say in the time that becomes available to you. That also will come through practice. Perhaps the most important thing that the board is looking at is your attitude. And how does it get reflected? It gets reflected in your approach to issues, meaning thereby that the board is looking at whether you are looking at issues positive. This you must understand very clearly, because it is not that you would have solutions to the problem, because many of the questions that will be asked of you, there are no cut and dried solution. For example, if they ask you about the solution to the Kashmir problem, now it's not a very easy solution to give. If there was an easy solution, it would have happened by now. It is not. But they will see how do you approach that problem. And that's very important. They are assessing, because as a civil servant, you'll be coming across a lot of real life situations, very many situations where your attitude will be assessed. If you're positive, the chances are that you'll find solution. Now, again, I'm repeating and saying, it is not necessary for you to give a solution to a problem. It is not even expected of you to give a solution to the problem. And hence, don't lose confidence just because you don't know the exact solution to a problem, because many of those that are sitting on the other side of the table, they themselves are not aware of the solution. What they're looking at is, how do you approach a problem? Meaning thereby, are you able to understand the problem clearly? Are you able to fathom the nuances of the problems? Are you able to analyze these problems? And on the basis of whatever little reading that you've done or experience you have, can you suggest a solution? So they are looking at your attitude. They are looking at your articulation. They're looking at your how reasonable you are. So all these attributes they're looking at. This is what the board is looking at. Mind you, I'm repeating and again saying, don't worry if you don't know an answer. The board does not expect you to answer all the questions. And I'll give you my own personal example. In the first year, when I qualified for the police service, I had about 55% marks in the interview board. And that's why I didn't make it to the IS. I qualified for the police. And next year, I improved upon it. And I'll tell you what all I did. I got 80%, which was probably the highest in the country. Now, how did this happen? What change happened in 1 year? I tried to understand what went wrong. And the attributes that I'm telling you, I discovered it through my own mistakes. I went back into it. The first year of interview, there are few things I did not know very clearly. And I didn't know how to get out of it. And I was getting, not really nervous may not be the right word, but I was finding it difficult to find the right words to convey. And that was a difference. Next year, I realized there could be situations where I don't know the answer. Now, once you go in with this psyche in your mind, it will give you a lot of confidence, because you will not bother that if I don't know, so be it, I don't know. No one on this earth knows everything. So the question here is, don't bother about what you don't know. Whatever you can learn, you learn it. I'll explain to you what all you can learn in next 1 month. Even if you don't know, doesn't matter. What you know, you should be able to convey very clearly, logically. And you should be honest enough to confess that you don't know. No harm. In the second year when I got 80% marks, almost 30 to 40% cases, I said, I don't know. It didn't really matter, because what I knew, I could convey it very clearly to them. I wish I were interacting with you. Probably many questions will be coming in your mind as I speak to you. And I would have loved to respond to those questions. Maybe next time when we have, I'd like to have an interaction with those that are appearing in the personality test, because they would know, as a consequence of what I'm speaking, what are the other aspects that they would look into. I will try and answer the questions that have come already, but it would have been much better if we interacted. So this is what the board wants. Okay, now let me come to the second aspect of it. The second question, how do you prepare from now on till the time of your interview? So some of you may be having 15 days, some of you may have a month and a half. So what I'm trying to suggest to you, how do you improve upon what you are? Nothing new will happen. The time is too short to change you dramatically. What I'm going to suggest you is to how to hone your skills in the time that is available. So let's appreciate the fact that the time is limited. So major transformation will not happen, but sharpening will happen. So listen to this very carefully, what I'm saying. And if you can follow this drill, it will help you. It will certainly improve certain percentage points of marks. And that is what that matters. Now, the question is, how do you improve your articulation? For this, I would suggest every morning when you get a newspaper, open the editorial page. Editorial page is the page where the editorial appears. Then beside the editorial, there's an editorial article. Read that article aloud in front of a mirror and tape it. I'm repeating it. Read the article aloud in front of a mirror and tape it. Do that for next 7 days, 15 days, and you will see your own diction improving as you do that. Now, when you do that in the beginning, if you've not been speaking earlier as much as you would have, as you should have, then you will discover that you are stammering or you're not fumbling, you are unable to read fluently. Don't worry about it. It happens with everyone. You are not the only person that are going to get troubled by smooth or fluent speech. I floundered in the beginning. Now you find me speaking very fluently. It didn't happen overnight. It happened over a period of time where I went through a particular drill and improved my articulation. So read it aloud. This is very important, not just read it. Now, what is the benefit that is going to accrue? Number one, of course, your diction, your articulation will improve. You will also know how to present a case logically, because each of this article, if you pick up a good newspaper like the Hindu, you will see that they're very logically presented. So your mind will start getting used to presentation of an argument logically. So if I have more sessions with you, I'll take up a random topic, you decide. Then I will tell you how to logically structure an answer in that particular example. I'm not giving an example right now. I'm just telling you the drill. So first step is pick up the newspaper, pick up the article and read it out. So one, it enables you to improve your diction. Number two, it enables you to present your argument logically. And number three, and very importantly, all these articles are written on a current topic. And as I will tell you later on, what you should focus on is improvement of your awareness of the current topics. So you're doing three things. Your articulation improves, your logical presentation improves, your knowledge improves of the current affairs. So by reading it aloud, you'll be able to do that. The second step in this reading business is that after say 15 days or 20 days, when you become slightly more fluent as compared to what you were earlier, then put the paper down and speak out the same thing in your own words. There again, you fumble to begin with. Don't worry at all. Don't worry. See, my friends, remember this very clearly. There are not geniuses sitting here. It's your hard work and labor and the effort that you put in is going to make a difference. See, you have already qualified for the written. So you have the basic material in you. Now it's a question of just the last hump that you have to cross. So if you concentrate on what I'm saying, you will cross that hump, but you have to follow this. So what you do is read it aloud, keep the paper down, and then say it in your own words. You will see the improvement gradually. So say if you have 1 month before the personality test, for next 15 days, don't say it in your own words, because it might hit your confidence levels. To begin with, you'll find it difficult to come and speak in your own words what you've written, what you've read. But after 15 days, try and follow this. This is drill number one. Drill number two is that form into small groups. Now, today you have technology. In my time, we did. So you can have 4 or 5 persons in WhatsApp group, maybe 6 persons in WhatsApp group. Now, after having constituted this group, every day, select a topic for discussion on the following day. Select a topic, a current topic, and assign somebody in the group to speak on that topic for 5 to 10 minutes. Let him elaborate. And after he's spoken for 10 minutes, then each other group member will comment on his presentation. And thereafter, you can have an open discussion. Now, what am I trying to do here? Number one, you'll become aware of a topic every day, so your knowledge improves. Second, again, your articulation improves. And third, you will be able to listen to others. Now, this is something which I'm going to tell you in the third part, that listening is as important as speaking. You know, God has given us 2 ears, but we speak more than what we listen. We should be listening twice as much as we speak. Not in the interview board, because there you have to speak most of it, but you must learn to listen. You must learn to appreciate what the other person is saying. And then you should be able to counter if required. You can agree also. It's not necessary that you should counter every argument that comes to you. So I'm suggesting to you, I'm not suggesting too many things, just 2 drills. Number one, pick up the newspaper, read it aloud, put it down, speak it in your own words. That is drill number 1. Drill number 2 is constitute to small groups of 4, 5, 6. Okay. And then set up a topic for the following day and do it every day without failure. Fix a time. This is drill number 2. Drill number 3 is start thinking in the language that you're going to speak during the personality test. Why am I telling you that? You might find it, why am I mentioning it even? No, what happens is we all usually think, at least I did in my mother tongue. We think in mother tongue. Then we have that mental translation and then we speak it out. So there is a gap between what you think and what you speak. Now, suppose you start thinking in the language you're going to speak, it comes out spontaneously. Now, this takes much longer, but you give it a try in next 1.5 months. It won't change overall, but at least you will have that attitude towards start thinking. And fourth point that I want to suggest to you, speak as much as you can and in the language that you're going to speak before the board. The reason is very simple. Your marks will be determined by what you speak. And speak, I'm repeating, in the language. If you have given Hindi as the language, aap pura apna vyakhyan, chintan sab Hindi mein kijiye. But if you given English as the language, then start thinking, speaking in English as much as you can. So these are the 4 steps if you prepare yourself. And then, of course, the 5th one is read the current magazines, read the newspapers, make yourself aware. My understanding is that you will not be asked about your subject that you've taken as an option. That is not usually done. It will be very unusual if they ask you. What they will ask you is, that is where the next point becomes important, is what you have written in your DAF. Now, DAF is important, not in the sense of what you write will give you marks. Many people think that if I boast, if I write, I was a champion here, I was champion there, I did this, I did that, and you'll get more marks. Let me assure you that you will not get more marks because you appear as a champion on DAF. DAF, हमारी तरफ यूपी में कहते हैं अस्त्रा, बंदर को अस्त्रा थमाना. So what you write in DAF, do it very carefully, because if you give him the wrong astra, वो आपके खूब हजामत बनाएंगे बोर्ड साहब. तो सोच समझ के लिए DAF में. There again, I would have guided you individually. There can't be a general guidance on DAF. What I can generally say is, in DAF, don't write anything outlandish. Don't write for the sake of it. So, for example, in hobbies, that's the biggest challenge that many people speak to me on. What should I write as hobbies? Now, hobbies is, what is hobby? Hobby is what you do during your free time. And you find it interesting. You enjoy doing it. That's what hobby is, as simple as that. Now, don't give very complicated hobby until you can handle the questions on that hobby. You have to be very clear in your mind. So someone gave me, sir, my hobby is spinning the ball in cricket. I said, why do you write spinning the ball? Just write cricket. Why do you want to add that spinning the ball and they will spin you out? Don't write any funny language. Write straight. Be humble. Are on the side of lesser mention than more mention. It's very, very important. So DAF is critical for you in terms of what you are allowing the board to ask you. So the marks will not be determined by what you write in the DAF, but marks will be determined by what the board asks you on the basis of what you've written in DAF. So you have to be very careful. You know, DAF has to be submitted by 24th. So many aspirants are ringing me up. I have no problem. I ask them to message me. I fix time for them. I discuss with them 5-6 minutes and I guide them as to what should be written in DAF, what should not be written in DAF. But I can announce my telephone number. There's absolutely no problem. 98998238. My request to you is just message me before ringing me up because I keep busy schedule. But I can assure you, if I hear from you, 98998238, if I get a message from you, I'll come back to you. I'll tell you what to write, what not to write in DAF or any other clarification that you want. I'm available to you. I have been doing this for past few years. I'll do it today. I'm so glad that last year, I was guiding more than 100 and almost 70-80% qualified, including the one who got second rank last year. And she actually followed the drill that I suggested, and she came back to me that it made a world of a difference. That's why I'm telling all this. So this is how you prepare for the interview. Now I have a full-fledged presentation on YouTube, but I'm not going to all the details. I'm telling you the salient features. Then finally, on the day of the, what do you do on the day of the? You know what the board wants. You prepared well on the day of the. Number one, you have to retain your confidence. How do you retain your confidence? And this is slightly different from what you would usually hear. Number one, you must realize that civil services are not the end of the world. In my time, probably, because there were not too many options available. Today, the fact that you've qualified beyond written and got into the interview, you are good. So if you don't make it to the civil, it doesn't matter, you'll get good position somewhere else. Because normally you would not have qualified for the interview if you're not good. So you must have confidence in yourself that you're good enough to come to the interview. So that will give you a lot of confidence. It's not the end of the world. If you don't qualify, you'll get somewhere else. So don't worry. The more you worry, the worse will be your performance. That is one. Number two, for your confidence, don't compare yourself with others. Though it's a competition, you're competing with others, but don't compare yourself. I'll tell you why. The reason is every individual is very different from the other. You can't say, unfortunately, we compare people, but you should not try and compare yourself with anybody. So maybe Mr. Anil Swarup is speaking very fluently just now, but Mr. Anil Swarup has had experience of 38 years in civil service and before that. So obviously he'll speak more fluently than you who are still getting into the civil service. So don't get hassled by the fact that Mr. Swarup spoke so fluently and I'm not so fluent. I may be fluent in speaking, but my knowledge is nowhere the knowledge that you have, because I'm not prepared for the civil service now. So you are much more knowledgeable than I. So you have your strengths, you have the knowledge, you are ready, you're much more enthusiastic than Mr. Anil Swarup. So you have your positives, I may have my positives. Everyone has his positive. So think it that way. So if you keep these in mind, probably it will not hamper your confidence. Now, what should you wear? Wear something which you feel comfortable in. I remember first year when I went in a suit in the month of April. And it was warm. Of course, they didn't ask me why I was wearing a suit, but I had never worn a suit before that. And I was feeling very comfortable in it, uncomfortable in it. Of course, I don't know it impacted my interview, but if you are uncomfortable physically, how are you going to speak well? So wear something which you feel comfortable in. Now, comfortable doesn't mean that you go there in pajama and things like that. Wear a shirt, pant, or a sari. Don't wear anything very flashy. That's what I suggest. Otherwise, you wear whatever. You don't have to necessarily wear a tie. You don't have to put on a jacket. You don't have to do that. Wear whatever you feel comfortable in. Don't wear anything flashy. Don't wear a strong perfume for ladies specifically. Don't wear a new pair of shoes. It will creak. I'm telling you these stupid things, but these are small things which unnecessarily divert your attention. So that is one, what you should wear. Then, while in the interview board, when they're assessing your personality, you have to be a very patient listener. Don't interrupt when the board member is asking you a question. Never. Never ever interrupt. Even if you know the answer, sometimes the excitement is there. Even in class I'm teaching these days. So someone is very excited, even before I complete my question, he says, sir. Don't do that. Listen, pause for a moment after the question is complete, so that not only are you thinking, you convey an impression that you're not blindly answering a question, you have pondered over it, and make it into a habit of pausing for a couple of seconds before you start answering the question. That is one. Listen very carefully. Secondly, if you don't understand the question, you can request. You can, sir, I beg your pardon, sir. I couldn't get the essence of the question. Can you please repeat? There's no harm. You're not supposed to be hearing everything. He may be a soft-spoken man and you haven't heard it. No harm in asking it, politely ask it. Number three, and this is very, very important. You all are youngsters who are getting into the civil service. You are not supposed to know the final answer to every situation. So don't say, sir, this is what I feel is right. No, you are not in a position as yet. Even I had this situation also. At my age also, I don't say that I have the final answers for every questions, you should be humble enough to say, sir, in my limited understanding or on the basis of information, these are words that are important. Sir, probably in my limited understanding or on the basis of information that I have. These are terms that you can use. What you do by saying so is you are keeping a door open. So suppose the board member comes up with a counter argument, you don't have to totally disagree with him. You can say, sir, that is also a possible argument. But on the basis of limited information that I have, I think this is the way forward. So you're disagreeing, but you're not becoming abrasive. You're not saying that this is what I say. You know, I have come across, because I interact, I don't take mock interviews because I don't have time to do that. But many people do go for mock interviews. That's your choice. You do it. But I suggest that these mock interview business should be done within that group of 5 and 6, where 5 should become board members, 6 by circulation, you can keep questioning them. It's much better because, you know, I don't know who are there in mock interview. They will never be sitting on the board. So it doesn't really make much of a difference. Mock interviews, to my mind, may or may not help, your choice. But here, you must understand that the board is not looking for ultimate solution and answers. So you can start by saying, this is my limited information. Number 2, you must understand the difference between facts and opinion. Now, facts, you cannot fib. You cannot guess. Until the board members pushes you to guess a fact, you should say, sir, I'm sorry, sir, I'm not aware. There's no harm. Say, you know, that is conveying a particular trait of your personality, that you're forthright, you have integrity, you have the courage to say no and say that you don't know. That's a positive trait. You don't have to necessarily say and try and prove. You're not proving anything, mind you. In the board, you're not proving anything. Nothing. You are conveying what you are. That's the best way of going about it. So never ever guess a fact or present a wrong fact. If you don't know it, say so, sir, I am not aware of this fact. And secondly, opinions can vary. You can have an opinion, but opinions, if they are to be based on facts and you don't know the facts, then don't give your opinion also. Now, suppose the board member gives you a fact. On the basis of that, you can give an opinion. I'll give an example. In the second year, there was a board member, because they also get bored. This guy was reading a book when my interview was going on. And when his term came, he put the book down and then he picked it up again. And I read a sentence from the book. So it didn't make any sense to me. So I said, sir, I am not aware of the background. So it will be difficult for me to answer this question. Well, this is a very famous book, India's China War. You haven't read it? Sir, I'm sorry, I have not read it. There's no harm. I mean, I'm not supposed to have read all the books in the world. It may be very famous, so what? So I told him, sir, okay, then tell me what it does. I told him, sir, since I have not read the book, I don't know the background, it will be difficult. No, you tell me, what do you think of it? He pushed me. So I said, sir, I gave him my opinion. He totally disagreed. He said, but the book has a different idea. Sir, that was my submission in the beginning. Since I don't know the background, I may not be able to comment on the book, but since you asked me, I'm telling you that. No, you should read this book. I said, sir, I'll certainly do. Immediately after the interview, I'll go and get that book and read it. And maybe then I'll find time and discuss with you. So everyone start laughing at it. So I'm not saying, you know, the difference between my first year and second year was, during the second year, I was making everyone laugh. After every discussion, they were laughing. I mean, the personality tests were reduced to a conversation. Now, it's not very easy to do that. I'm not suggesting you to do that. But if you can do that, if it can be reduced to a conversation, you've done it. You've done it if you can reduce. But to do that, you should be sure of yourself. And sure does not mean you reflect overconfidence. You should not be saying that what I'm saying is correct. So, for example, there was a retired director general of police, who appeared very annoyed that I was already in the police and I had opted for IS. So he asked me, why do you want to join the IS? What is wrong with the police? Now, this is a very question that you have to understand how to answer such questions. So I told him, sir, there is absolutely nothing wrong with the police. I said, sir, I thoroughly enjoyed being in the police. And I would have continued, but on the basis of limited information that I have with regard to Indian Administrative Service, my understanding is, now I'm limiting myself, I'm not saying it is. My understanding is that the service officers offers much more opportunity than the police service. Then he immediately, no, how do you know that? I said, sir, that's why I said, sir, that's my limited information. I may be wrong, sir, but on the basis of information that I have. Now, then when he asked me why, I spoke for 5 minutes explaining to him how is IS better than the IPS? Some of which even I could make out he was not aware. At the end of it, the others were laughing at him. So I'm not saying you make them laugh at him. My contention is I had facts, I had prepared myself. I mean, many of you would have qualified for the police or other services and still opting for IS. You should have a good reason to explain why do you want to join the IS. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that during the course of your personality test, you should come as a person who's forthright, straightforward, logical. And if you do the drill that I have suggested, you should be able to do that. Now, I've spoken for about 35, 40 minutes. You know, I can go on and on, but I would love to answer. If you have any questions, I'd like to answer them.
I think one of the biggest questions and even challenges, even when I took the interview which I faced, was the duration. So some of us have interviews in the first week, and there'll be few people who will have it in the last week, right? So what would you suggest for somebody who is having it in the beginning, right? Which is like quite less time in comparison to others, and somebody who has like ample time and it's like he's going to wait for maybe 2 months. So any suggestions for that?
Let me tell you very frankly, time is a material, early or later. There isn't going to be much of change in what you are. And that's what the board is looking at. Your personality doesn't get made in 1 week, 2 weeks, or 1 month. It doesn't. You evolve that way. You can only hone it a bit. You can sharpen it a bit. The drills that I've given you will only sharpen you. It won't change your personality. But that itself is about 4, 5, 10 marks. And those who have appeared in the civil service will understand the importance of 10 marks in civil service. You are in and out of the IS. So you can hone your skills. Don't bother about when your interview is. That's not, I have often told most of candidates, there are things beyond your control. Why worry about it? By worrying about it, will it help? You can keep worrying, oh, my interview is earlier, his interview is later. It doesn't matter. You do the best that you can in the given time, relax. And I forgot to tell you, smile as much as you can. Don't laugh, smile.
There's always a debate whether we should lead the interviewer to a certain area by giving a certain. Should we do that? Is that advisable?
I did that in the second year because I had confidence. Until you are very good at it, don't try and indulge in all that. It can be done, but if you are very confident of yourself, otherwise you could be in trouble. If they gaze that you are trying to lead the interview board, then they would be in trouble. In second year, I don't know. It happened spontaneously. I had no conscious effort to lead them. But as it was happening, I was leading each member to ask me the question that I wanted them to ask me. But I didn't do it consciously. So, for example, they asked me about Allahabad University. I had given Allahabad University in mind. So there's, obviously, when I spoke about Allahabad University, good things, they asked me there's a lot of student trouble. I anticipated that. What are the causes and all? So you can do that. You can do that. But I would not suggest that you make a conscious effort to do that. You should come up as a spontaneous response. If in that spontaneity it comes, fair enough. But don't make a conscious effort to lead the board. They are much smarter than you do, and they will catch you. So don't try and lead the board.
Okay. So, there are a lot of controversial topics right now. Like if you look into India's Ukraine issue, right? So how do we handle that? So,
Okay, I get your point. I read that question. So let me explain this to you. First of all, the board is looking at a balanced point of view from you. You should not take an extreme view, even if you have one. Number one, and be very careful about it. You have to have a balanced view. You have to give pros and cons. You're not supposed to present an extreme view. And I'll give an illustration soon. Number two, you should be able to suggest some way forward, if not the entire way forward. And three, you should not appear to be critical of the stance of the government. You can be some negative points of what is probably not correct, but you should not be saying that the government. Never start your answer by saying yes and no. No, sir, this is right. No, sir, this is wrong. No, it doesn't start that. Your conclusion will say yes or no, if you have to say, but don't start by saying no. They might ask you, do you agree with this? India's stand in Ukraine. Let me take that example. Do you agree with India's stand? I would not say yes or no. I would start by saying, sir, it's a very difficult, contentious issue. And there are no easy answers. See, I'm keeping myself clear. There are no easy answers. The options available for us as a country were limited. And in the national interest, we had to pick up a best possible option, though may not be the best option. There are no perfect answers to such situations. So I've ring-fenced myself. No, now it's done. Now I'll explain. Sir, what are the options available to us? Number one, to side with the US. We must understand the consequences of it, because our defense reliance on USSR, our trade with USSR would suffer dramatically if we allied with the US. If we allied with the Russians, then the US will get annoyed. We have depended on that. So best possible option was to remain neutral. And that's what we did. Then the next question they immediately asked, don't you think this is non-alignment? So then you can say that, sir, it could be defined as non-alignment, but sir, it is more in national interest. If our remaining neutral serves our national interest, then I would suggest that we should have. See, these words are important. I would suggest that we should. So this is a good enough an answer which you will agree. No? So there are no extreme views here. You give me any contentious issue, whether there should be reservation in India, farmers bill, you give me any issue, I'll give you a balanced answer. So when you have the next session, get those guys over, let them raise specific issues, and I'll tell them what answer could be given to that.
So one of the challenges most people face is being mentally alert. Let's say if the interview is going longer. Normally the interview is like 20 to 30 minutes, but there's certain cases in our students, so it went longer. So any suggestions for them?
None. You see, if you're engaged, you won't even know how the time passes.
That's true.
Frankly speaking, how do you gauge time? If you find something absorbing, if you're sitting with your girlfriend or a girl sitting with the boyfriend, what is the time dimension? When you're waiting for the girlfriend or the boyfriend, how much time? Time is the same, but mentally you think that is a longer time. So if you are engaged in a discussion in a personality test, you will not even feel the time. Why are you bothered about whether it's 35 minutes, 40 minutes, or 15 minutes? Doesn't matter. You won't feel 15 minutes or 45 minutes if you're engaged. So the idea here is to get engaged and forget about the time. Time has nothing to do with the marks that you get, less or more. So don't worry about it at all. It's for the board to take a call whether they want to have you for more time or less time. Don't even bother about the time.
Can you briefly talk about certain services which like you would have knowledge about, but most students don't have, like the central services?
Since I've not worked, as an outsider, I have some idea.
Mm-hmm.
So if I were to choose, then I would go IS or IFS, depending on your.
Definitely.
That is the top. If you don't do that, then you should have a reason for not accepting that as the first. There could be a question on that.
Definitely.
Then it could be police service or revenue service, depending on, some people give revenue service as their first choice. Very difficult to answer. Why do you want to become a revenue officer? What is so great about the service that you're not going in, which is the usual choice? I don't have an answer for that, because I will never give that. But someone who chooses should have an answer. Why do you want to do? Because they could be grilled on that. Then audit and account service. So what I know, the only problem with audit and account is it is, table job. You sit and do. So if someone asks me, why didn't you give audit and account as your first choice? Sir, I would rather be in action. Why do you want to be in action, sir? Probably that's my inclination. I'm not saying that is good or bad. I'm not passing a judgment on, as I said in the police, that it's a good service. I'm not saying that is bad. So you don't condemn any service. You're saying that they are good in their own right. But sir, I have some information about those service. On the basis of that, I feel that audit. They should not start ascertaining about the service now, because they will end up answering wrong. Broad idea, even if you don't have great idea of how the civil account service works, even I don't have it even now. So it doesn't really matter. You don't have to know the details of a service. Broadly speaking, you say that this is what I've heard about it, this is what I know. But if there's a specific question about the service, I'll answer. I'll try and answer from my own understanding as to what is audit and accounts, civil accounts, defense accounts, all sorts of service that you have, trade service. I've interacted with officers of these service, so I know
better. Now, let's say normally they don't go for too many controversial questions, but let's say there was a recent controversy, controversy on the hijab controversy in Karnataka, right? So how would you handle that question?
No, I'll handle this. And you ask any controversial. I mean, there is no such thing as controversial. Your job, in a civil service in the IS, you come across those controversial situations.
Definitely so.
So they will put it across to you and you should know the answer. Don't worry. They will ask you about hijab controversy. Many would be asked about it. You should have an answer. You should say, sir, as I look at it, sir, if there is a law, then law should be obeyed by everyone, irrespective of the religion. If there is no law, then if there is a rule based on law, then that rule has to be obeyed. If there's no rule, no law, then we'll have to go by the practices. And finally, if as a person I look at it, the comfort of the individual, if it is not illegal, I'll allow him to do so long it is not outlandish. So I will not allow a person wearing a bikini to come to the class. But if someone wants to wear a hijab, I have no problem with that. Why should I have a problem if it is not illegal? It's a personal choice of the lady. What is controversial about what I said? Nothing. There's no controversy here. Controversy is created by people who have a vested interest. Per se issues don't have controversy. They're not controversial.
True, sir.
So you give me any trickiest of situations, I'll tell you how to approach it. If the interviewee can develop that sort of approach to issues, job done. And that can be done in next 1 month time. Because if you start discussing every controversial subject, you will know how to answer a controversial topic, approach a controversial topic.
The few students are asking, the Monica Sharma, she's asking, how do we improve our personality so that it is reflected in the interview?
See, first you must understand what are the components of personality. And then you can't improve personality as a whole, but you can improve upon their components. And I touched upon those components.
Yeah, you did. So briefly, you did.
There are a few things which are God-given. My face is God-given. My hair loss, this is all God-given. I can't do much about it. But what I can do about it? I can do about what I speak, how I speak, how much do I listen to others, how logically I put my argument, how patient I am. These are all personality traits. So you have to develop those personality traits rather than talking about personality as a whole. How I dress, how I walk, how I talk, how I smile, how much I smile, how do I look? For example, there is a conversation going on with you, then I should look in your eyes. So in the board, if I'm looking down as I'm answering, it's not done. So you have to look, not stare at somebody, look into the eye of person you are having conversation with. These are personality traits. This you can develop in next 1 month. You can actually, some people, when they are conversing, they're looking down, they're shifty eyes. It reflects their personality. So if you're not gazing at somebody, you're not staring at somebody, but you are talking to him through eyes, through your mouth, through your body language, all that results in your personality. That's what you got to do.
Normally a lot of people have this question that my English is not that great, and I think you briefly talked about that. I think the exercises yesterday were wonderful, but does vocab play a part?
No, keep it as simple as possible. Don't become a Shashi Tharoor. No way. Keep it as simple. The idea, what is the objective of communication? Communication is to convey my thoughts in a manner so that they are understood by the person who is listening to me. I'm not there to impress him. See, there is a difference between impressing him with my language or communicating my thoughts. In interview board, you are not out there to impress anybody, mind you. You are there to convey your thoughts. And the best possible way that you can do is keep it very simple. Keep the sentences short, whether writing or speaking. Don't speak long sentences. Short sentences, you should be able to do it.
Okay. We have a student, Ashmi Chauhan. She's saying, can the interview be bilingual? Because, you have like either in English, either in Hindi, and sometimes what happens, most students...
I'm not very sure on this front, but my suggestion is don't do it. Okay. That's what the practice that you have to do in next 1 month when you have a month and a half, that you speak only in the language that you're going to speak in the interview. So I'm speaking to you in English. अगर मुझे आपसे हिंदी में चर्चा करनी होती तो मैं पूर्णतया आपसे चर्चा हिंदी में करता. मैं प्रयास करता कि उसमें सामान्य रूप से कोई अंग्रेजी का शब्द उसमें सम्मिलित ना करूं. And when I'm speaking in English, I'll try and speak in English. There's no harm in speaking 1 or 2 words here, but don't get into the habit. Now the tragedy of the youngsters, some of us, is they write Hindi in Roman script. And what I call the WhatsApp language. Please avoid WhatsApp language in your speech or writing. WhatsApp language, I mean, right from now, whoever is listening to me, don't write WhatsApp language even on WhatsApp. Get into, these are habits you can't overcome. You get into the habit of, speaking the lingo of WhatsApp, you'll speak that language in the board. Stop that. In every walk of your life, whether WhatsApp, telephone, Arey, come on, yaar, what's going on? No, that conversation has to stop. Get into a formal conversation for the next month and a half, so that it becomes your second nature, the way you communicate.
So we have Shishir Kumar, and he says he has IFS as his first preference, but he's giving the interview in Hindi. Would that be any way impacting him, his chances?
Not at all. You can learn you can. They will ask you this question, and he should answer this very clearly. He should say, "Sir, मैंने हिंदी सीखी है, मैं अंग्रेजी भी सीख सकता हूँ, या फॉरेन सर्विस में जहां तक मेरी जानकारी है कि जिस देश में आप जाते हैं वहां की भाषा आपको सीखनी पड़ती है, और लोग सीखते ही हैं कोई नई भाषा, मैं भी नई भाषा सीख लूंगा."
Okay, so then we have, I think we have a lot of questions, right? So there's one question which says, I don't have too many extracurricular activities, right? So what should I do, right? Because
don't do anything.
Right.
Don't do anything. See, be true to yourself. Don't write anything which you are not. You'll get caught. Don't worry about it. There are large number of people who do not have extracurricular activities, so don't worry about it. If you don't have it, so be it, live with it. They might ask you a question, we don't see much of extracurricular activity, sir, because of the circumstances in which I came up. And they will ask you, what are those circumstances? Why couldn't you indulge in extracurricular activity? You should have an answer. Why couldn't you have extracurricular activity? See, not having an extracurricular activity will not be held against you if you have a good answer to explain why you don't have an extracurricular activity. If you're whiling away, I mean, then there is an issue. What you should be able to answer, what did you do in your free time? You must have some answer to it. You can't say, I had no free time. This is not expected or accepted.
How do you, so there are a lot of people who previously were not as academically inclined or had a lot of failures in life. So there is a question by Apoor. He says, how to let go of previous failures, like let's say in the previous interviews, and maintain confidence as a worthy candidate.
I'm so glad that this question has been asked. I should have addressed it. I have yet to come across an individual who hasn't failed in some time in his life. I've yet to come across. And ask the gentleman to read my book, Ethical Dilemmas of a Civil Servant. He'll understand what failure is. Because in my career, I failed a number of times. Yet people treat me as a successful officer. So failures are very natural. So once you understand the fact that failures are natural, it will give you confidence. John F. Kennedy failed, Jawaharlal Nehru failed. You give me Mahatma Gandhi, you read Experiments with Truth, he failed on a number of things. Who hasn't failed? So failure is natural. Committing mistakes is natural. Question is whether you learn from your failures, you learn from your mistakes. That's important. You should do that. So don't worry about failures. Failures will happen. Failures have happened. They will happen, continue to happen. The question is whether you get up and are ready for the next fight or not. That's more important than brooding over failures. Don't brood over failures. Learn from, try and analyze as to why did you fail. That's important. Beyond it, failures have no other relevance. You have to learn why did you fail and then not commit those same mistakes.
Okay, sir. One of the most difficult things which we have faced is how do we have parents. Sometimes we don't have parental support. Like a lot of people who are preparing, right? And I have a few students like that they're preparing, taking the exam, even reaching the interview stage, and they've not been able to make it. They have some jobs like in SSC, etc. Then how do you handle the criticism that you get from your relatives and your parents, etc., your near and dear ones?
See, it is a tough situation for such people who do not get support from their parents or their relatives. But that's where the true strength of the character of an individual comes. It could be parent or somebody else. People may laugh at you. People laughed at me when I was trying to improve my language. I was in a hostel and all my colleagues used to laugh at me. They used to laugh at me. But then I was focused. I knew what I had to do. So you have to be focused. You have to have a purpose in life and you are totally pursuing that purpose. So there would be people laughing at you. There will be people not supporting you. And that's where your test of character comes. And you should be steadfast in what you're doing. And once you succeed, then those very people who meet me now, they recall that we used to laugh at you and you carried on the way you were. So it will happen. It may not happen from parents. It will be somebody else. There will be people who will try and pull you down. Your character gets tested in those circumstances where you're totally steadfast towards the goal that you have and you work towards it. And your motivation comes from the goal that you have. You work towards it.
Definitely, sir. So a lot of us have gaps, right? Some of have gaps in academic years. Some of have obviously have gaps after we're preparing, during the time we're preparing, and some gaps are like longer in duration. Obviously, some are shorter. So how do we justify that if we do? Right?
You don't have to justify. You have to explain.
Mm-hmm.
So there could be many situations. In one situation, I've seen people who keep preparing, did nothing else. 1 year, second year, third year. If I were to answer that question, though I've never been in such a situation, I would say, sir, that was my aim to get into the civil service, and hence I didn't look elsewhere. And every year I thought I would do it this year, but I failed. And I kept looking back at the mistakes that I committed. I tried to work on them, and that's why probably I could come this distance.
That's a very positive reply, sir. Definitely.
You have to have a positive response to even you give me any negative situation, the worst of it, you have to think positive. And that is why I suggest if they read Ethical Dilemmas of a Civil Servant, they will understand how to think positive even in the most negative set of circumstances. That positive thinking has to come up.
So Renika Chaudhary, she is asking, how do we analyze ourselves, which job suits us? Because we are right now filling the...
I have to talk to that person to understand that person. I can't suggest what you should do unless I understand that person clearly.
Mm-hmm.
It requires a conversation with the individual for me to suggest as to what. I can't blindly say that you should do this. It would be wrong of me to suggest what he or she should offer unless I have a chat with that person. I've been having a chat with a number of people who discussed with me and then decided what they want. Because that decision is not mine. I can only guide the person. That decision is his or hers. So unless I know that person well enough, how will I be able to say that he or she will be better equipped in this service or that service?
So one of the challenges was like most engineering students, there's a question as well, but most engineering students have this problem that, it's been 3 or 4 years since I did civil engineering or I did electrical or I'm computer science engineering. So I've forgotten most of it. So how do I prepare for it? I don't remember too much about it. And there's
don't prepare. Time. Why do you want to prepare? You admit, sir, I did it 4 years ago. I've forgotten most of it. No.
Okay.
As I keep saying, your knowledge is not being tested. People get hassled about studying. Don't study. Relax. In next 1 month, do something which you enjoy, which brings smile to your face. Don't be tense about studying. You've done the studying part in the written exam. Now relax as much as you can. Laugh as much as you can. But speak as much as you can. Discuss as much as you can. That is how you'll improve. Don't study too much.
Yeah. So Monica Sharma has a question. She says, many times I've prepared, the interview questions, like the basic questions. But what happens is under pressure, I'm answering something totally different.
So why are you preparing questions? That's why you're answering differently.
Okay.
You should prepare the approach to answering questions. If you listen to me carefully what I said, I'm talking of approach to questions. You're preparing questions. You could written exam thodi na hai ki aapne prashna hai uska uttar de. No. They are testing not the answer but the approach and the manner in which you answer. So don't prepare questions. Don't learn questions. You must spend next few days to understand the approach to answering a question. That's why I'm focusing on articulation. And that will relieve you of an unnecessary tension in your mind, which makes you say something which you don't want to say. Relax. Prepare for the approach. And I'm repeating it again. Have as much group discussion as possible. But that's where you're going to hone your skills of communicating to your friends in the manner that you want to convey. And then it will become a second nature. You'll be able to speak that before the board also. Same thing.
Okay. So there's a question that, my father works in PRIs and I don't like his job. But which can be the best job for a work-life balance?
Sorry, last part I did.
So he's looking at which is the best job among the civil services choices that we have for work-life balance.
Work-life?
Work-life balance.
Work-life balance. Now, first of all, I don't appreciate the point saying that I don't like my father's job. I mean, that's his liking or disliking. Who am I to comment on my father's job? He must have selected his job, doing it well. So don't have that negative approach. Just let the father decide what job is good for you. You can't have a liking or disliking for your father's job. Let him decide what he has to do. Then work-life balance is important in the sense that in order to perform well in the civil service or wherever in life, if you don't have that balance, then you will find it difficult even to do what you are wanting to do. So you have to have a balanced existence in the sense of being able to devote time either ways, relaxing for a while. You can't, then the burnout will be very fast. So you have to have that work-life balance where you relax, you entertain, and you do work. And that is why in a large number of professions, officers are forced to go on leave to relax and then come back. I mean, some people, maybe exceptions would have done it, but it is always better to spend time elsewhere until you start enjoying work in a manner that itself becomes a relaxing. That's, of course, is a different level.
So Nikhil has, I think, a question. He says, how do we answer opinion-based questions? Should I remain neutral, especially let's say it's between two religions or something like that?
No, it's not a question of neutral. Neutral may not be the right word. It's a question of giving a balanced view. And if you heard me correctly, I've been harping on this time and again. If you ask me any question, I'll explain to you how do you respond to it in a balanced manner, not neutral. Neutral means you are indifferent to what's going on. No, you can't be. You appreciate the positives of both the sides, then point out towards negatives of both the sides. And then I would say it would be in fitness of things that we evaluate it and don't take an extreme view on an issue. That's what is expected of a civil servant. That's what is expected in the interview board also. Balance.
So one specific question I definitely have is, how do we choose cadres? Obviously, there are zones right now. And you coming from Uttar Pradesh.
See, it's again a personal choice. I mean, I cannot suggest to anybody what cadre he should choose. I can give my choice. Now, each person will have to decide what does he want. So, for example, I found UP to be very exciting cadre. Some people will think UP means bada bawal hota hai. Fair enough, that's his choice. मैं कैसे decide कर दूं where you should go, UP or I can give my impression about a state. But the choice has to be the individual. I can't decide for him that you should go here. It also depends on his temperament. So, for example, in southern states, people ask me. So I say, at per my limited understanding, I think Karnataka is the best cadre right now. Okay, now you may disagree. Why is it the best cadre? Because it's much more stable. As I understand, there's not so much political interference in functioning as would there be in Tamil Nadu or Kerala. So I see that. In Western states, I would say Rajasthan is a very good cadre. Though, of course, there is political interference, but still one of the better cadres. So is Maharashtra, very good cadre. These are good cadres. Now, in the eastern side, West Bengal has become troublesome right now because of a variety of reasons. Then Odisha is a good cadre where there's so much scope to work. But these are all my views. I can't decide for anybody. My suggestion to those that are filling their DAF is that if you don't give your home cadre, then you should have good reason to explain why you haven't given. That is a question that we will ask. So you belong to UP and you don't give UP as a state, you should expect a question. You should have a good answer. Similarly, if you're from Maharashtra and you give some other Gujarat as the cadre, you should have a good answer. I don't have that answer. You should have an answer. Why do you want it? Because you know the reason why you did it. Be very forthright and frank about what you have to say.
Jasvi Soni, she's asking what to answer. So what has happened is that, first 11th, 12th, we had IIT, JEE mains and all that, and then engineering, and then UPSC prep. We really don't have any hobbies.
You don't have any?
Hobby, right? Because we have been
You see, I would like to speak to that gentleman or that
definitely.
lady and ask her. She would be having a hobby, but she doesn't realize it. I'll talk to her and I'll discover a hobby in her. She's not realizing it. Doesn't she watch television? Doesn't she watch any sport? Doesn't she play any sport? Does she read? I'm sure she must be doing something. Despite all that, Does she enjoy playing with friends? That is a hobby. She doesn't have any friends. So, I mean, a hobby can be, she may not realize that that is the hobby, but I yet to come across an individual who doesn't have spare time.
Definitely, sir. Right. This is a question which these days is being asked.
Can we keep it last couple of questions?
Yeah. Sure, sir. Sure.
I'm coming again. I think 2-3 days down the line.
Yeah, definitely, sir. So, can we ask the there's normally a question that the board is asking this question. What would you ask us to ask you at the end of the interview? This is recently, last 2 years. This question.
Yes, people have started asking.
Yeah. So
you can be humble and say, sir. I mean, it was a pleasure being here. I learned a lot during the interactive session. I don't have much to ask you, sir. Or probably I never thought about asking any question, and I can't think of a question that I can ask. See, it's a question of how you speak. You know, I have not fulfilled what they've asked me, yet I have conveyed to them my respect, my understanding. That is what they're looking at. They're not looking at what you are answering. Of course, that is one of the aspects, but primarily how you are asking, how you're speaking. That's most important.
There's also one question. So what in some interviews is happening, they ask you, is there any topic you would like us to ask a question on?
So if you think that you want them to ask any question, you say that. If you think you can think of a topic where you think that they should be asking you questions, you can expect, sir. You can, if the environment is nice, you can say, sir, I never thought that such a question will be asked of me. So I never thought of a question that I would ask you. But sir, since you are asking, this is my interest area, sir. If you can't ask on this, I'll be able to explain. They will laugh and it will be over. See, it's a question of testing your certain dimensions of your personality.
So finally, how do we take care of our health? I've seen in the past, many students falling sick during this period because of the pressure, and they take too much stress.
So don't take pressures. That's why I've been emphasizing this. Take it easy, because you can't do much to what has already happened, and take pleasure from the fact that you qualified in the written amongst lakhs of people. Enjoy the moment of having qualified for the interview. We feel thrilled about it. Not many people do that. Look at lakhs of people appear and only 1,400, 1,500 qualify for the interview. So you 1%, less than 1% of people who appeared. So enjoy the successes in your life. You don't know what's going to happen in the future. If you're successful to this distance, enjoy it. Enjoy it. That's why I keep saying, have group discussion, relax, watch movies, go out and play, relax, don't be tense.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for being with us. It was a pleasure interacting with you. And definitely we'll have the session you suggested soon enough.
I would suggest whenever you have that session, have people around. Let them ask.
Yeah, definitely.
It's much better. Others will also benefit in the interaction with the students. You see, you may have appeared long ago. I appeared long ago.
Yeah, definitely. It's been 12
years.
Their
response will be noted by others. It will help. So normally what I do is there are 50, 100 people sitting here. One by one, they ask questions and I answer. Others benefit from it. Rather than listening, third party listening. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you.
Bye.
So much.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, and I think we are done. If you have any questions further,